The Dead Pair Podcast is brought to you by Elite Shotgun. They stand behind you. And is fueled by Fiocchi.
Welcome to the Dead Pair Podcast. Coming in hot with everything you want to hear about sporting clays.
Ben Hustway.
Each short Hawaiian person would have to fight 14 kangaroos.
Let's get Anthony on the phone.
You're making a big mistake, okay?
Yeah. We're talking Gianna Santo tonight.
Well, I have something, but I don't know how much everyone's going to like it.
I was not ready for that.
With your hosts, Jason Rambo.
You just didn't want my wife to edit something else you did.
And Sean Alley.
Gotta keep it PG-13, man.
Often imitated, but never duplicated. It's the Dead Pair Podcast. And now, it's showtime.
Welcome back, everyone. We've got a lot to talk about. What's up, Mr. Large and in Charge?
Jason, doing good, buddy. Starting to get some seasonal change up here in Ohio. The leaves are starting to pucker up a little bit, and things are starting to change color.
See, now you're liking the whole floor idea, aren't you?
Yeah, just pay a lot of attention to that kind of stuff. It is September, so here we go.
Yeah, man, lots to talk about. Recently in the news, the FETASC organization has sent out a letter, and it's nasty.
Yeah, it stirred up it kicked up a whole hornet's nest, did it?
Yes, it did. Basically, the gist of the letter is that if you are holding a FETASC event on your property, you cannot hold a super sporting event at the same time. So, oh man, we're gonna ask.
And the penalty goes towards the way I understood it. Not to interrupt you, but the way I understood it, the penalty actually goes towards the officiating people that are officiating FETASC because they have a risk of losing their license. I think is how I read it. Yeah,
I don't know, man. I just can't believe they're doing this. It's not good. I mean, I can't imagine anything good coming from it at all. You know what I mean?
Well, I've seen some of the grumblings online that they're claiming that the some of the shoots that they have in Dubai, I guess they're not paying the royalty fees or whatever they are, back to the FETASC organization.
Right.
At least that's what the rumor mill says.
So let me just read this off for people that haven't seen the letter. The first two paragraphs, it says, by decision of September 3rd, 2024, the FETASC Management Committee considered that the so-called discipline of supersporting is an illegal copy of FETASC discipline, and consequently, in order to protect our sport and the FETASC member federations from any unfair competition, the FETASC Management Committee has decided that no FETASC certified collaborator, be it referee, competition secretary, and official course designer, is authorized to work for a supersport event organization under penalty of having FETASC certification withdrawn. So, and I'm sorry, but I don't think they've studied the rules of supersporting very well because it's the only similarity is a two-shot single. In my opinion, you still have stations like a sporting course. I don't know. I don't think it's that close to FETASC, but whatever, who am I?
I mean, when it all boils down, you're basically pointing a shotgun at a clay bird in the sky or on the ground. So there's a lot of similarities between all the disciplines when you get down to that point.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it makes Mark Baltazar look like a genius with his AFS now, but
right.
But no, I mean, it's a shame, I love all the disciplines, FETASC, sporting, super sporting, AFS. I love all of it. And man, I just hate to see that a club might have to make a decision to throw one or the other,
Well, I think as time goes on, if this continues and they stay adamant about it, I think it's going to wind up hurting the game of FETASC, is my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't think anybody could argue that, really. And if you look at it, FETASC is probably one of the most expensive events for a club to put on. The referees have to be certified. You have to have a lot more traps. I mean, it takes longer. So it's more expensive for a club to put on. And I can see them saying, well, I guess we're going to do away with FETASC and just have 100-bird supersporting.
Yep, I can see that too.
But, Sean Alley, we've got a pretty sizable tourney talk to get to. You want to go ahead and do that real quick?
Yep, let's go ahead and get her going.
It's Tourney Talk. Brought to you by Score Chaser.
All right, the Kansas State FETASC 5 Stand and Atlas Cup will be coming up April 24th through the 27th. That is 2025, guys, next year, at the Shotgun Training Center. Georgia State FETASC Super Sporting, March 12th through the 16th, again, 2025, at Old Hudson Plantation. We've also got the Gamaliel Cup, April 3rd through the 6th at Crossville Shooting Sports. And last but not least, Alabama State is now up May 16th through the 18th, again, 2025 at Selwood Farms.
And you know, right there, you just said something, Sean. The Georgia State FETASC / Super Sporting at Old Hudson Plantation. You know, there's going to have to be a decision made there if the FETASC Federation, you know, holds up to this new rule. So, going to be talking to Rick Hemmingway tonight. I'm anxious to get his opinion on this and what his thoughts are. You know, Rick recently attended the South Carolina State Shoot. There were some things that went on there that he's got some opinions on, and he's got some opinions on targets, which have been a hot topic lately. So, pretty anxious to hear from Rick.
Yeah, our relationship with Rick goes way back. I know he set the very first state shoot at Cardinal that we went and shot, Jason, if you remember that. And we were like, whoa, these are some crazy targets.
Yeah.
But that's Rick Hemmingway for you. And I'll tell you what, he's a good target setter and definitely knows how to challenge shooters when you go to one of his tournaments.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think we were a little harsh on Rick for the targets at the U.S. Open that he had there at his place. I mean, I think Rick was trying to set a new precedence, really. If you look back on it, I mean, a lot of people think that targets were over the top, and maybe they were over the top for their level, you know, and not necessarily just quote unquote straight over the top. So I don't know. I mean,
yeah, it was. I mean, again, looking back, maybe we were, but at the same time, they were still to this day, in my opinion, most challenging targets I've ever shot anywhere.
Yeah,
in my whole career of shooting registered targets.
Yeah, and but I think he's, you know what? I'm not going to guess. Let's just see what he has to say about it. But, Sean Alley, let's visit our sponsors real quick, and we're going to be right back with Mr. Rick Hemmingway.
Hey, guys. Jason and I really love bringing this podcast to you week after week, but it does take a lot of time and a lot of resources to make it happen. And without these very special people, we couldn't do it on a week-by-week basis. Hey, Toby Tomplay, help these guys remember who they need to support.
Yes, sir. They can support Fiocchi USA, Elite Shotguns, Vero Beach Clay Shooting Sports, Score Chaser, Odo Pro Technologies, Rhino Chokes, RE Ranger, Taconic Distillery, and Atlas Trap Company.
Well, it's definitely been a hot minute. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Rick Hemmingway. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. And you, Jason?
I'm just doing awesome.
Rick, I tell you what, man, I think you've been burning up the roads, what I've been hearing.
Yeah, I've had a busy schedule. It's normally about 2 weeks in a row is normally my stint without getting a break of a week or two or at home or at least off the road constantly. But I'm on a 4-week run right at the moment, which is kind of unusual for me. And my wife reminds me every night when I call in of how many days I've been on the road.
Yeah, it's tough being away from home. I know.
It is.
Rick,
it is. That's the thing you sign up for when you get in this business, though.
I know it. That is definitely the truth. Rick, speaking of being on the road, you recently did something very honorable at the South Carolina State Shoot. Can you tell our listeners what happened from your side of things?
Yeah, it was an unfortunate situation, Jason. I didn't really mean for it to be public knowledge. That was never my intent. I don't want any recognition for it. What I did, I thought was the best for the event and all parties involved. We were shooting my South Carolina State Championship. Day one, I shot the red course, and I posted a 93, of which I missed 6 targets on one particular station. It was I'd started on station 8 and ran through 15 and back to 1. I was straight. I was shooting good. I felt a lot of confidence. I had not shot a lot going in that shoot because I'd been going on the road 2 weeks in a row prior to that. And so I was really excited about my opportunity to be competitive, so to speak. Not that I was going to win, but at least I felt like I could be competitive. So I got off to a good start that day, got to station 1. They had a midi off a 10, 12-foot tower. It was a lift. It would go up higher, but they only had it about 12 feet off the ground, curling over your right shoulder going away. And then they had a little flopper teal at about 40 yards. You can see full face. It was a baby spring machine. There was really no excuse to miss it. I didn't feel like. I killed the midi the first pair. The second target, I missed it. And it was like, I don't know what went over me, but it was just a totally meltdown for my mental capacity that I had worked that hard to be straight into that station and miss something that you should never miss in 40 years. But anyway, I did. Well, I never let it go. I killed the first one next pair and missed the same bird again. And I just totally had a meltdown. I didn't show any emotion. I just kind of, I don't know what my mental game went to, but it was a negative impact. And I dutched the next two pair and ended up getting 2 out of 8 on that station. I recovered, ran the next couple stations, leaked one there with about 2 stations to go and got out with a 93. Turner Parcell, good dear friend of mine. Normally he and I and probably Luongo are consistently in the running for the state championship normally in South Carolina. He put up a 99 on the blue course, and I think Luongo was sitting on 93, 4, 5, somewhere along there. I'm not sure. But anyway, so that's the way it was after day one. Day two, during the first rotation, somebody realized that the midi on station 1, the same on the red course, which is the same station I missed 6 on, me and another friend of mine was shooting together, and the other friend said, "That's a midi on the tower." I said, "Yeah, it sure is. Look at the boxes on the ground." After my meltdown, I never even thought about it. Wasn't marked. I didn't think about telling anybody. It just is what it is. I didn't think twice. It wasn't a big deal. Nobody talked about it. Just me and my buddy just made that mention that it was a midi, even though it wasn't labeled. There was no big drama, nothing talked about really about it. Well, during the first rotation on Sunday, someone realized it was a midi and chose to make it public knowledge and go to registration supposedly and make a scene and say that, that's supposed to be thrown out, etc. The history of what's happened in the situation at shoots has been they've thrown a station out if one hadn't been labeled. I totally disagree with it. Everybody that I know of totally disagrees with it, but it happened, and because of the history that's gone on around the country this year and past years in that situation, they threw it out. So now I became a 99 and I should have had a 93, honestly. Well, if I shoot really good on the second day and happen to beat Turner, there I am, considered South Carolina State champion, and I didn't honestly win it because I missed 6 on one station. So if I beat him by 1 or 2 birds the next day, I get posted with 1 or 2 birds score higher than him. I didn't win that honestly. Well, there's no way. It just happened to impact me the most because I missed 6 targets on that station. So what do you do? So I thought long and hard of all the different options, all the different scenarios could play out if I shot well that day. And I just decided it was in my best interest just not to shoot. If I don't shoot, that eliminates me from being in spotlight or any gray areas. And I didn't want to win the shoot under those conditions. I didn't want to win the shoot and not accept it and say, "Turner, you the winner because you should be the winner." And all the score chasers got to post it where I would be the winner. So there was no way around that I could think of other than doing what I did. And I chose to remove myself from the shoot. And I have no regrets about that and no hard feelings of me, the club or target setter, or anybody involved. It's just one of those things that happened in a freak instance where it impacted me drastically for that one station, and it was just an unfortunate situation. And I don't think I need any recognition for it. I don't need publicity. I think it's just an honest way of handling that situation, in my personal opinion.
Well, Rick, I understand what you're saying, but that's very honorable that you did that. It really is. So let me ask this, Rick. So if that situation came up in an event that you were holding at your club, be it a mislabeling or something that was missed or whatever, how would you handle that as a club owner or someone that's putting on that shoot? What would you have done differently?
In the past, if you were found out during the shoot, you just went and fixed it and it went on about your business. Is what's happened in the past. I've seen it happen. In 30 years of this business, this is a thing that happens, and no doubt about it. I've seen courses with 98 targets. I've seen courses with 102. I've seen all kinds of things happen. But anyway, that's what would normally happen up until this year. I'm going to say probably this year, or at least last half of last year, where it was consistently happening, where people were throwing out stations. I don't think you have any choice at this moment in time today but to throw it out, because the history's been built of what clubs have been doing. There's not an NSCA rule to my knowledge on what you do in this situation. But effectively this week, I'm writing a letter to NSCA, Michael Hampton, and all the EC members. And my personal opinion would be, and it is going to be, that it's an honest mistake by the club, and it is what it is, but it's not justification for throwing a station out. And it just happens to go on. I don't think you should label it. Once you find a mistake, I think you just leave it as is for the remainder of the shoot, and I think that's as fair as you can be in the situation. I don't think that target changed. I don't think anybody missed that target because it was a midi versus a standard or a 70, to be honest with you. I think someone just chose to, I don't know if it works to their advantage. I don't know what the reason for them bringing that up and making a big deal out of it. But anyway, that's what's happened in the past throughout other shoots. So there's no way around it. You kind of got to go with the history of what's been done. But I think that history needs to be changed, and the NSCA ought to send a letter out to all gun clubs saying that, all clubs should make every attempt to do it correctly. But in the event it happens, it does not warrant throwing a station out because of it. It just is what it is, and life goes on. That's my personal opinion.
And that's good, Rick. I mean, again, you've been around the sport long enough to have a good opinion and a good understanding about what's happened in the history of the sport, and how it's been handled in the past. But I was just going to play devil's advocate there, but I think you already answered it. I was going to ask you, thinking back on it, do you think your missus had anything to do with it being
Absolutely
a midi? And you know, okay,
absolutely not. I only missed that particular bird twice. The easier of the two targets on that station was the one I missed. I never hit it. I missed all 4 times, and it's because I shot everywhere but right at it. I shot bottom left. I shot left of it, and I waited late to try to shoot it dropping, and none of those 3 worked. So the last pair, I tried to be aggressive and shoot it right off the arm, and that didn't work either. So I shot everywhere but right at it. And that's, as history would have it, and anybody that's been associated with me will tell you, when I got a gun in my hand, the slower you throw them, the more Rick's going to miss. It's just throw it fast as you want, as far as you want. I'll try my best to hang with BP. But you throw it slow and close, that's death for me. Okay. And this happened to be a prime example of my weakness.
Well, and kudos to you, like Jason said, kudos to you for actually doing what you did, because, we've all heard the grumbling about people, cheating or doctoring their scorecards, or, using whatever advantage they can to increase their score. I guess it's refreshing to hear from somebody in your situation, of your caliber, of your experience, that where you actually, stood up and said, nope, I'm not going to let this happen. I'm not going to let it come down on my watch. And, a lot of people wouldn't have done that, Rick. So hats off to you.
Yeah, it was a major impact only for me, because it was closest with Turner's 99 on the other course day 1, which shot overall just a tad bit easier than the red course, I feel like, consistently with averages. I think I was very capable of shooting a 98, 99 on that course on a good day. I'm not saying I would or wouldn't, but if I did, then, there's potentially that I could beat Turner. And Turner had a 3 or 4 bird lead over the close competitor to him. So it only impacted me more than anybody else in the field, to be honest with you. So that was, my whole thing was thinking about the future. This thing comes down to the end of the day, what's going to happen? It's just going to be a bad deal, because I'm not going to accept the trophy. Turner's going to get the trophy, but then everything advertised through social media or wherever is going to show Rick Hemmingway as the winner. And that's not fair to Turner, who deserved to win it anyway. So the only way to prevent that I could come up with was to get my name out of it. What happened with anybody else, they'd have to deal with it. But I didn't want to be part of that situation, honestly.
Gotcha. Well, a great story, and definitely a lesson learned for everybody, hopefully. All right, well, steering on to a different course at this point. So we got another hot button topic to talk about. I'm sure that you've probably been made aware of the letter that was released from the FETASC Association about what's going on with FETASC and super sporting, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you want to give us your 2 cents on that?
My 2 cents is that no court system, no legal system is going to ever determine that super sporting and FITASC are the same events. And nothing's going to change in the U.S. I don't know how it's going to impact other countries. I don't keep up with other countries very well. Haven't done so in the past. I'm not done traveling to other countries, so I don't know how it will impact them. But in the U.S., I don't see a thing in the world changing. We could continue to run our NSCA FITASC events as we have in the past, just the same in the future. If they want to sue us, they're welcome to, but I don't think they stand a snowball's chance of getting anything accomplished that way. Super Sport is the number 2 event in the country. It ain't going to change from a club owner standpoint. So the only thing it's going to impact, if anything at all, will be World Cup events. There's only 2 of them held in the U.S., and they're the smallest attended events, FITASC events there is, because they're trying to be independent FITASC events, which has never worked in the U.S. The World FITASC, when it comes back, that may be a horse of a different color. I don't know how that'll pan out, but for everyday normal NSCA events that has FITASC associated with them, it's not going to change a thing in the world, do I see.
Well, the one thing that Jason and I read over, and maybe we've misunderstood it, but it looked like the threat from them was that if you are a FITASC official, FITASC referee, and you're at an event where they're also throwing super sporting, is as we understood it, is your license going to be in jeopardy if they catch you officiating?
What's the value of that license? Absolutely nothing from a range owner standpoint or a shooter standpoint. All I want somebody to do the job and call it the targets fairly. I'm not a certified referee, but I think I'm more than qualified to referee any FITASC event in the country, to be honest with you. So I don't think that badge does nothing for Rick Hemmingway or as a range owner or a shooter, to be honest with you. In some instances, cause problems because I've had some referees where I had to make them understand I'm writing their check, first of all, and that badge, that certificate they wearing around their neck doesn't make them the high sheriff of my shoot. They got to understand that they're there to make sure the event goes fairly, and we're not going to create a big scene if the shooter doesn't have his number on the back, And sometimes when they first get that certification, they think that the rule book is God Almighty, and they can just really make a squad sour for the whole event over stuff that doesn't have a lot of merit, in my opinion. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Rick, there's something I've been wanting to clear up, and when I say we need to clear this up, I mean Sean and I. We've been critical in the past of the targets that were at the U.S. Open that you held at your place. And I guess the reality of it is, at the time, you kind of were setting a precedence for targets that we haven't seen in a long time in this country. And although, we struggled, or a lot of people struggled, in hindsight, maybe everybody should have seen the bigger picture for those target sets. Am I correct in saying that? I mean, you are very opinionated.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm perfect and I run a perfect shoot. I'll give it 100% and I'll try to do my best to make the shoot the best it can be. And I think I do as good a job as anybody in the country. I'll never say I'm the best or better than anybody else, but I think I run a pretty good shoot. Well, with that said, my mentality for sporting clay competitions, tournaments, you're paying an entry fee, you're putting up money to try to win something. Well, it's a trophy or money is a competition. That's not just a participation event. That's a money that you are trying to compete and win something. Well, first of all, people are so hung up on their score that, my opinion, they're hung up so much on their score that what their number is on the scoreboard is the determining factor if they've had a successful event or not. And I think that is totally wrong. I think it should be how they finish in their class against competitors in their same class. And I think if they'll start evaluating that and say, hey, I'm 10th out of 50 in my class. If they'll tell me that, I'm more satisfied than tell me a score, because the score is irrelevant. I want to know how to finish in class. When I shoot a tournament, I want to beat the whole field by one target. I don't care if that takes a 70 or 99. I just want to beat the field by one target. And that's my mentality, and I think that's the way competition should be. I think you have different levels of events. I think you have your monthly fun shoots, as a lot of people call them. I think those are designed to be recreational type targets. I think once you get to a state shoot, then depending on where that state shoot is, you get a better grade of targets. And I'm going to use the word quality. I don't like to use fun. I don't like to use easy. I don't like to use hard. I say quality. I think that people ought to get their money's worth. You buying a vehicle or you buying a shotgun, you want it to perform, or you want to have all the bells and whistles. You're paying a lot of money for it. You want it to work. You want to feel like you've got a value for your money. Well, I feel the same way when I pay entry fee. I want to be challenged. I don't want to shoot the same thing I can shoot every week at my monthly recreational courses. I just soon stay home and shoot 30-cent targets versus shooting $1.50 targets. But anyway, moving on, that's kind of my mentality, right or wrong. That's the way I believe. So when you get to a U.S. Open, I feel like it should be more difficult than anything you've seen in the past. And if I had my choice, Nationals would be even more difficult. But I won't ever get that choice. But the U.S. Open in 2022 at Backwoods, on average, I would have liked to see the winning scores in about a 185, 183 long there. I think it was a 187, a 178 maybe. So anyway, 90, anywhere from 90 to 93 average would be perfect. But we were not perfect. We were one side or the other of being perfect, and we had to be on the higher side. A couple true pairs on DT11 would have probably made up a considerable amount of difference. I think it was, if I remember correctly, around station 10 and 12 maybe, or 10 and 8. Two pairs in there that would have made a considerable amount of difference if there had been reports that are trues. I vented the course. I approved the course. I take 100% responsibility for the course. But it shot more difficult than I would have liked. Hindsight's 2020. When you set a course week in advance, you look at it and it runs for 3 days. You can get some variations of wind and weather. That did not happen. The wind really didn't affect that course. It just shot just a little more challenging. So with that said, I was not perfect in getting that course where I wanted. The 694 course, Big Mike said it shot fine. The A400 course I set personally, I have no regrets about. But due to all the talk about that event, my honest opinion is, when I put up $1 million of what it cost me to put that shoot on, when I'm using my money and I'm making it the best I can be, I want to make sure that you get your money's worth. And it's going to take a different greater level of targets for me to feel like you got your money's worth. With that said, if I had to do all over again today, and you told me I'd get 500 shooters if I set the same level of targets, or I would get 1,500 if I backed them down and made them 20% easier, I'd take the 500 every day versus 1,500. I've got to make a living, so I've got to show a profit. But the money's not what drives me when I have a major event. I want to do everything I can, from the dust control to the road system in case it rains, to the painted shooting stands, to the quality of the trappers to the best of my ability, to the quality of the meals to the best of my ability. I'm going to spend more money hosting an event than about anyone in the country, because that's what, all at the end of the day, I want to make sure the shooters felt like they got 100%. And that's the way I am. So, it's just, again, the targets were just a few percentage lower than I'd like to see, but not a whole lot. Now, when you go around the country, where you got a lot of things to equate, my opinion, into target setting. You've got target setters that may not deal with machines every day of the year. They may not know what a machine is capable of doing and not put a target in extreme angles, which I'm willing to do. When you put it in extreme angles, then you'll get a different presentation off that machine than you may have seen before. And you probably won't see those angles and stuff at a recreational course, because most recreational courses not going to put that much spring on a machine. They're not going to put it in that degree of angles. If you go to a club that doesn't have a lot of room, you got smaller stations, you can shoot a lot of quarter and away birds and trap birds, because of they can't put machines out in front to be able to get to and load them, trying to run that volume of shooters through. So when you do that, you increasing the chances of the shooters hitting a lot more, the more quartering and trap style birds you throw. It's just the nature of the business. So everywhere you go around the country, what clubs it goes to can have an impact on level of difficulty. Target setters, their mentality, or range owners, they all what they want. I mean, we've shot some shoots that the manager of the club wanted everybody to have fun, he called it. Well, he did not get any publicity about his shoot being good, because it was just basic everyday targets. It was repetitive. You got a lot of the same targets throughout the course. It was a shoot. It was a quality shoot, but it was not that awe factor. It was not anything that got anybody really excited. It was just a routine going station to station and shooting basic targets. So I think if you're not different and thinking outside the box, figure different ways to throw targets that hadn't been thrown before if possible, and having that factor in there where somebody runs it, they're giving high fives. And I saw a lot of that at 2020 U.S. Open, where they were giving high fives when they hit 5 out of 8, for example. And that's where years back in the early 90s when I started, you didn't see everybody running stations. You wasn't in a class. At that time we didn't have master, we only had AA, but you didn't have AA shooters missing 1 or 2 and E-class shooters running it. It didn't happen. But when somebody did run a station, they were giving high fives because it didn't happen a lot. And I think that was a reward that someone got right there on the station. So throughout the course, they were getting rewarded for doing good on a certain station, other than at the end of the event being awarded for winning the class. If any of that makes sense to you.
Yeah. Well, Rick, I was just going to ask you, because this is one of my upcoming questions. So, I mean, a lot of guys take the approach that, hey, we're going to have shooters from E-class, well, I guess now D-class, all the way up to masters, and you have to present targets that, quote unquote, everybody should be able to hit regardless of their level. And I was just going to ask you, I mean, do you feel, in your opinion, just your opinion specifically, are there shoots that, like, the beginning shooters or lower class shooters should tend to avoid because of the difficulty of the targets that are going to be thrown there, or the field, the people that are actually going to be shooting it? I mean, do you think that there are, like, take the U.S. Open, do you think D-class and E-class shooters should be going to that in reality?
Yes and no. You've got experienced D and E-class shooters, and you've got inexperienced. I do not personally think that if you have a youth that's never shot anything but haven't shot ratio targets, haven't shot anything but in youth events, which is normally youth events are what I call cupcake targets. If they haven't ventured out to the bigger clubs or some larger events, and you take them and put them right in the U.S. Open, and you didn't do them just, you have T-ball, and you don't see a kid on a Major League Baseball field. You just don't throw them under that bus to start with. And I think that you shouldn't do that as a parent, unless you've got a kid that's got the mentality to understand what they're getting into, or an adult for a matter. If the adult doesn't have an idea of what they sign up for and what the level of targets will be, then, I don't think they should be there if they're not prepared for those type targets, and their mentality won't handle it. If it takes them breaking a lot of targets, if they're breaking 7% on a recreational course and they got to break 7% at the U.S. Open to be satisfied, then they're fooling themselves, in my opinion, and they probably need to stay home.
Well, Rick, something you've been vocal about, and I agree with you on this. there should be a level of difficulty moving from a state shoot versus a regional versus a U.S. Open versus nationals. And I agree with you on that. But do you think if there was a general consensus that these shoots will have targets set this way, this is going to be the level of difficulty moving up, right? State versus regional versus open versus... Do you think if there was more understanding of that, then people wouldn't look at their scores so much and like you said, more or less worry about the people where they stand in their class versus a number?
Yeah. I mean, yes and no, I guess. You know that, I mean, I think it'd be nice if the target setters were a little more consistent in what they're going to do. And I can tell you from the East Coast, there's a consensus on the East Coast that won't travel to the West Coast or Midwest because they're typically have been much consistent higher scores. I've not attended them, so I can't say. I'm not saying they're easy targets. I'm just saying that normally when you see the field stacked up at 93 to 99 and even 100 straights, you got a congested area there of 25 people in that area. There's a good chance that's a much softer event than what you saw at 2022 U.S. Open. So with that said, there's a fair amount, I can't give you a number, but there's a fair amount of shooters on the East Coast, and I'm saying from Virginia to Florida, that will not travel to regionals and stuff held in those areas because of that's what they're expecting. But if we knew going in what the level was going to be, then I think that the numbers would get bigger. I mean, typically, the western part of the country is low turnouts compared to the East Coast. On regionals, they normally run 200 or 300 shooters lower than if it's held in Southeast Regional, for example. And I think that has some impact on it. But if there was a more consistency among target setters on what they were going to do for these events, I think it would be helpful to the whole shooting community. And I think that the level and the quality of events we put on the East Coast is a major reason why we have such large attendance. There is a higher capital of shooters, but I think that when you come, if you're talking to shooters from the West Coast or Midwest, they know when they come to the East Coast, they're going to shoot a higher level of difficulty of targets. And I think that's why they come. I hear it all the time. People talk about it. So we're excited to finally get quality targets. That's just what I hear to some extent. And what capacity that is among the shooters, I don't know. But I also hear shooters that complain about courses are too hard and it could be a state championship. And at the same, before they get through telling me that was a pretty tough course, because I'm a target setter, they will tell me, I ain't shot in 3 months. I ain't even practiced before I came out here. So how am I supposed to feel sorry for how he shot when he put no effort in? And I think that's a big thing that happens at these events as well. Everybody, because it's U.S. Open, because it's a regional, we go into it because it's a big major shoot. It's a big deal. All the vendors there. It's a big party. It's the thing to go to. But, they didn't pick up a gun a month before they got there.
Yep, that's well said. You get out of it what you put into it, right?
Absolutely, you do. But it's my fault as a target setter or whomever may be setting targets because they didn't shoot the score they would like to shot when they put no effort in coming into the event. So that's the issues you have when you have the different experienced shooters from E to master, and then you've got where it's just a public event. All you do is pay your dollars and show up. And, when you got that kind of event going on, you're not going to satisfy anybody. But, it's just the way the sport is. And it's a matter of whether you, as a range owner, you want to try to make the most out of it or you want to put on quality. I choose to put on quality personally. But, the ones that have chosen to throw a much easier grade of targets for a regional or U.S. Open, which I don't think is the way it should be. Personally, I hadn't seen their numbers thrive and social media go wild over how great the event was. So all I can tell you is what I'm doing seems to be working for Rick Hemmingway, and I'm going to kind of continue to do what I do.
Well, that's well said for sure.
And my name just happens to be one of the toughest target setters in the country, and that probably is true to some effect. I'm not denying it, but again, I cater to what event I'm hosting, where that event is. Like, for example, I set Washington State, and there was no cupcake targets there. They were quality, but they were a step below what I would call quality in the state of Georgia, for example, just because we're talking about a 150-person event versus having a 700-person event. I think when you got that kind of volume of shooters, you need to step it up a little bit, in my personal opinion.
Well, Rick, let me ask.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Let me go from a different angle here. I mean, given your experience, given your history, you've been around the block a time or two. If you had some advice, or let's put it this way. When clubs are looking for a target setter for a big event, whether it's a signature event or something like the Jack Links or something like that, or even a state or a regional bid, what kind of things do you think they really should be keeping in mind when they choose a target setter for that event?
An experienced one to start with. I mean, if you don't have someone that's traveled around the country to see all the aspects that go into target setting the way I do it, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I'm right. There's no school we go to learn how to target set, and we've learned our mistakes. And we've got 400 or 500 shooters every week that tell us what we're doing wrong if we screw up. But anyway, when you're setting a FETASC event that starts on Monday and runs through Sunday, you've got to take consideration what the weather could do that week. Could you get an east wind, a west wind, a north wind, a south wind, and what it's going to do to affect those targets? And are you going to be able to make some kind of adjustment in the event that happens to keep them fair to everyone? If you're running like when I ran to Washington State, it's pretty simple because we flip in the same course every day. So I can gauge the scores on Friday, prelim, on how they shot it, and I can get a few more birds in there, or I can take a few birds out and I can move that scoreboard wherever I want to. Well, when you set the same course every day, you have that luxury of doing that. When you're setting a U.S. Open or something that's running multi-days and you only got one shot at it, you don't have that luxury. So you've got to factor in the lighting conditions from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the afternoon, for example. And a lot of these courses are not open. You've got, especially on the East Coast where you got big trees and pine trees and shadows, you just can't get more out of that station, and that station will allow you to get out of it due to lighting conditions or whatever it may be, or whether you've got another station shooting at the back of that open, you can't put an incomer on it to get in there to load it, or if a trap malfunctions, you can't get in there to it to work on it without shutting neighboring stations down, which is the cardinal rule you don't do, because it just backs up the whole course, and it's going to frustrate shooters, it's make the club look bad, it's going to cause things to run delayed. When they're delayed on one event, they're delayed on next event, it's a chain reaction. So all that stuff has to be factored in to be successful when you're dealing with high volume shoots like a regional U.S. Open. There's a whole different mentality that has to go into that than you do for a small one-day shoot or a small 150-person state shoot or whatever. So with that said, I think that you need to really entertain the idea of using experienced target setters. I like to use different target setters, and not because I'm not capable of it. I use them because that target setter has skin in that event, because he or she is a target setter, and they also manage that event for me. Well, when they managing that event, they are riding around constantly, so they see them to make sure the target's always flying consistent for where they set them for. When you've got one target setter setting all the events, they can't be everywhere. So if something happens doing a round where color of a target changed because the loaders or the stagers put in proper targets there, or A machine's moved because it wasn't staked down properly. It's walks. That target's got closer or farther. It's going to get worse and worse. So the quicker you can catch those problems and try to make it right, the better off you are. So, when you got one target setter, sometimes that can be a problem. The other thing that makes these major events a little bit challenging is when you got the disadvantage of having multiple target setter is when you got one target setter setting one particular event, he's giving it everything he's got. He's doing everything possible to make it as enjoyable, as challenging as he wants. He's throwing every kind of creativity presentation possible. Well, when he does that on course 1, another target setter does that on course 2, another target setter on course 3, you potentially got 3 pretty challenging courses in a row. So you never get a break. So the scoreboards will reflect so. Where when you got the same target setter, sometimes he can say, okay, this course here can shoot a little harder than the other one, next one shoot a little medium, next one a little easier. He has that luxury of doing that. But you, as a range owner, how are you going to single one target setter out and say, okay, you're responsible for setting the easy course? That's going to be hard for a range owner to do also. So there's a number of factors come into play when you're having these major events and whether you got multiple target setters or not. But, there's to make these shoots what I call as perfect as they can be, without inclement weather coming in to make it more interesting, it takes a lot of experience, and it's something you can't go to school for. You just got to get out there and do it at local shoots and local clubs and put the sweat and equity in and get the feedback from the shooters, good or bad, till you figure out what you got to do. But I take it to heart. I go to bed every night replaying every single machine I set the day before it starts the next day, so that before that green flag falls, I can make any changes I need to. I said, well, at one station there, that true pair might be a little quick. So I'm going to go out there in the morning, slow one down or raise one up, give them more time, or the lighting condition may not be just as good as it could be on this particular station. So I'm going to do something different. But I'm replaying every single presentation until the last single minute that event starts to make sure I've done all I can do. And that's the way I do it, for example.
Well, Rick, I want to kind of shift gears here for a second. This is a multi-part question, and I'm kind of looking for that view from 300 foot above, if you will. You've been involved in this game as a competitor, a target setter, and a club owner for a very long time. How do you think the sport is doing as a whole? Are we headed in the right direction?
Yes and no. Yes, the numbers are up. In the last 5 years, every event in the country, the numbers are higher than they ever been, in my opinion, for the most part. So we consistently are doing well, but we are carrying a high capacity of shooters at a higher age. They're aging out. And the youth are coming in. The youth is a driving thing behind it right now, but it's totally by luck. It's not by skill, so to speak. I was on the EC for several years, and I was not fortunate enough to accomplish what I'd like to accomplish while I was on there. But where we're failing as the NSCA is you've got all these youth organizations that are creating opportunities. They're sitting right there. All you got to do is reach out and grab them, in my personal opinion. And the NSCA is not built for them to come into the system. And the reason is the classification system. It is more, the problem is these parents will spend everything they can possibly spend, whether it's glasses, whether it's guns, whether it's ammo, whether it's practice. All they want to see little Johnny do is be successful to the best of their ability. It doesn't matter. It doesn't take money. Scholarships doesn't interest that youth. It takes, it can be trophy, anything, getting a name called out at award ceremony. That's what rewards these parents. Well, if I take a new youth today and start them in an NCAA event, and they're, for example, 18 years of age, they've got to shoot against Turner Parcell, who just won our state championship with a 197. Do you think they stand a chance of getting on the podium in junior division?
Yeah, that makes right. That makes total sense what you're saying.
That's where we're missing the boat, in my opinion. I've heard you and Sean talk about it, and I'll give y'all all the credit. Y'all are doing a wonderful job on trying to figure out how to get more participation, and I'm all for that. But until the NSCA comes into some type of grade classification system, some type of concurrent to allow these youth to be competitive and have a chance to win something that their parents are proud of and they're proud of. They're getting in spotlight, getting a name called at the award ceremony. Until that happens, we're not going to grow this sport, in my opinion. We just totally missing the boat right there. All these youth organizations are just it's not costing us anything. They got them going. They got it going on. I'm having 3 youth events next year with over 800 kids in it at my place. This past week, all those are South Carolina residents now. Last weekend, at my South Carolina State shoot, we had 40 youth. 40. I'm having 3 events with 800. And then we only got 40 in our state championship. Does that tell you we're doing something wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
We've got the stepping stone built to start them in all the youth programs. Look at SNTP National. 3,300 kids. Is that the number Jake had?
I think somewhere it was more than. I think it was more than that, actually.
Maybe 3,500.
Yeah, and we don't have a stepping stone to get them into the system, to get enough experience to be competitive in a legit juniors and sub junior category, because we got sub juniors and juniors that are winning HOA. It's not their fault. But we don't.
Do you have an idea, Rick, on how to fix it? I mean, like,
I don't have a true answer, but I think there ought to be a step down concurrent of some type of grade levels where, there's got to be some way, and I don't have the 100% answer. There's got to be some way where you separate and I don't know if Joe Finese and Todd Hitch are still juniors or not, but that category of juniors has got to be an elite junior division where these other kids have a chance of winning in some sub-junior category of junior division, if that makes sense. And the only way I know to do it is where you got some type of grade level, where you got 5th and under, you've got 11th and 12th is varsity, 9th and 10th is JV, 7th and 8th is intermediate, and then you got a rookie division, which is how all these state organizations, youth programs are working. But there's got to be some way that these top NSCA shooters been in the sport for 10 plus years and still in junior category is not having to compete. These kids coming in and not having to compete against them. I don't know the answer to it, but there's got to be a way. But that's where the energy needs to be focused, not giving a regional host club $5,000. What good is that doing? They give us $5,000, then turn around, we got to give $5,000 back to Team USA. It's just a wash. That 1% tax money that we're supposed to be using to promote NSCA or promote to get more shooters, the energy needs to be built in, take care of these youth from these youth programs into the NSCA. I mean, it's sitting right there that all these organizations have built the enthusiasm and excitement and getting all these kids to handle guns safely and be able to get out and shoot sporting clays. They're hooked on it, and the parents are willing to support them. But they're not going to support them to send them to pay $1,500, $2,000 a weekend to go to a regional and be at the bottom of the list. Not stand a chance by default. It's not that they are not adequate shooters for their age group. They just have never been on that level of competing. If you go to a fun shoot, NSCA fun shoot is the same thing. It's not just major shoots, because I don't think those kids should be going right to major shoots from a youth program. They need to go to monthly fun shoots and work their way into the system and experience it before they go to a U.S. Open, personally. But, we don't have the building block stepping stones in place for them to get there.
Well, you answered a lot of the different parts of the question that I had for you, but let me ask one last question from you, Rick. One of the things we're seeing is a lot of the drop off. People hit master's class, they feel like they can't be competitive, and they just quit. Do you have a difference in opinion of how we can fix that other than this downclassing thing that they're doing right now?
I don't. I mean, I think that it's almost, you got three different level of competitors. You got one competitor just going just because of the shoot. They got enough money and can afford it. They enjoy it. They don't care if they didn't ever leave home planning on winning. So they just out there. You ain't never satisfy them what you do with them. So you just take their money. You're glad to have them. You're glad they enjoy the sport. You're glad they enjoy your event. But they just let them stay in master or let them stay in wherever they want to be. Then you've got the serious competitors that put into practice and effort and want to be there, but they are a master class shooter on their state level, but on national level, they are truly a double A or maybe even an A. Those are the ones you got to figure out how to get them in their correct classes. And I think it needs to be done more. It'd be nice if it could be done more on state level, because state level, some way or another, instead of just being a computer number, there's some way to dissect what the targets in most states are consistent. For example, if there's some way to analyze what they do in their state, and I still say that when I first started, we started with the average system. And the reason the average system did not work was you could, as a host club, you could have register shoot days, like on a Wednesday, for example. You could have a register shoot day. Individual could come in there. At that time, I think it was $1.50 for register targets. They come in and pay $20 for 100 targets plus $1.50. As a club owner or range owner, you would send those registered target scores that they told you what they shot into the NCA. Well, all that was a way for them to impact their average and skew their average to keep them in lower classes, which called sandbagging. Well, nowadays, if the average system was back in play for any event with more than 200 shooters, I think it would be as fair as you could make it, personally.
That's a good idea.
You talking about the scores, how they are now, you talking about hard events or whatever. It only took a 93 or above, if I remember correct, 92 or 93 above to make double A when I first started shooting. A double A was expected to be somewhere between 88 and 92 average, and then it went down from that. There was a lot more tournaments won with 85 to 90% in the mid-90s than there are today. Scores, the averages today are much higher than they were in the mid-90s overall.
Wow. I guess that shows how we've all gotten better in some way, shape, or form.
I don't know if targets were that much harder or we were just not that good. I don't know.
Maybe it's a little bit of everything, Rick. But no, that's interesting, and that's an idea that we haven't heard of for a while. So I like it. I like it, Rick. Well, listen, we've kept you on here for a hot minute.
I'm gonna ask you a question.
What's that?
Do you think it's fair for an individual that shoots, they might shoot 500 practice targets a week, they might spend $1,000 a week getting lessons? And I've seen this happen. So, I mean, it is true facts that it does happen. As hard as it is to believe that people will spend this money. But say they spend $150,000 a year practicing between ammo, travel, and everything, shooting competitions. They put all that effort in. Do you think it's fair to them to go pay the entry fees that we're paying today and shoot the same recreational caliber targets they shoot every week? Do you think that's fair to them?
No.
Okay. I agree 100%.
I really like what you said at the beginning here about quality of targets, and you're paying big money for targets. You ought to see some stuff that you're not going to see at your local club. I really like that. I think,
and to be honest with you, I'm trying every single major event I said, if it's a regional or U.S. Open, I'm trying to throw targets a way that's never been seen. So there's no way you could have practiced because you've never seen them before. That's what drives me. Just doing the same thing over and over I have no interest in. I want to be different. That's what I've always done. That's what drives me. I want to be able to throw a target a different way, never been thrown before, a different presentation or upside down, whatever it may be. You know, whether it's off a trampoline or something, it doesn't have to be difficult. I just want to be different. So I'm always trying to get more out of the traps than they were designed to do, if at all possible. And I'm using terrain, or whether I'm using trees or whatever, I'm trying to make each station as unique as possible when I'm setting traps. And when you factor all that thinking in and what you're trying to do, you get a different style of target, which some people may consider being, they may call it hard, but it's different. And you've got, I think a competition is your ability to read the presentation presented to you and execute a plan that allows you to hit that target. And I think it's a test of your ability to do so. And that's what a competition is. A tournament is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. That's
so if you just walk into a stage and say, well, that's just a pair. I just don't think that you should set a course should be of just okay, we just like watching paint dry. We just shooting skeet and trap till we finally get to a station interesting. I don't think a course should be like that. I mean, I don't think every one of them needs to be 60-yard crossers. But at the same time, even on what we call quail shots, trap shots going away, make one curl left, one curl right, something to try to trick somebody into at least paying attention to it instead of just throwing the gun up there and getting 2 for 1 in a major competition. Those kind of shots are designed for corporate fundraiser events.
right.
Well, and that's where the experience and the artistry comes in, like from somebody like you that has all those years to look back upon versus somebody that's new to the game, you know, that haven't been around as much. And so obviously when they're hiring you or one of your caliber type of target setters, they know they're going to get somebody that's going to be able to throw some different style targets and not just the same old mundane stuff.
Right. And I think we all made mistakes. I mean, it's nobody's perfect in this world. Richard Falls is a dear friend of mine. I did not attend the U.S. Open. I heard him talking about a true pair of Batus where I think Anthony stated if you couldn't shoot super quick, there was no way to get the pair. Well, he may have made a mistake on that pair, but you should have sounded like to me by listening to y'all's podcast is where I got the information from, I believe. Could we have not at least killed one of them with 2 shots and get a 3 out of 6 and move on? Was it the end of the world because you didn't feel like you had a fair chance at those 3 pairs? I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm just outside on the fence looking in and evaluating is 3 targets different on the scoreboard the deal breaker for calling the whole event that hard? I don't know the answer to that either. But anyway, it's just, outside looking things I think about and listening to y'all's podcasts or listening to shooters talk about different presentations of different events around the country.
Well, Rick, you've been in this game long enough to know that if you stick around sporting clays long enough, you ask 100 people their opinion, you're going to get 100 different opinions. So
you're exactly right. I will. And I'll talk as long as you will. I don't have anything but time, but as you well know, I can tell already that I like to talk. But I think as both of y'all both have a lot of energy in trying to get more people introduced into the sport. It's not about the level of difficulty of target shouldn't be the deciding factor whether they had a good time. I mean, at the end of the day, they need to be working on how to compete in their class. That's where the mentality needs to be for these new shooters, and as y'all trying to get more into. But I think that y'all, in my personal opinion, are trying to bait a new shooter never shot extra target before right into a regional U.S. Open may be distasteful. It may not be the correct thing to do, to be honest with you.
Well, we like to see people spread their wings. If they've only shot locally, I think they need to go to a regional. I'm not saying they need to follow the circuit and go to all of them, but I think if they happen to have the opportunity, they need to go to a regional and take a look at some of these bigger targets or targets they haven't seen before.
I mean, that's why sporting clay is unique is you go to different courses, different grounds, different terrain, different presentations. I mean, that's what makes the sport exciting.
Yes.
So I don't ever want to see the sport go to where it's just a routine of the same basic targets. Everything's got to be the stakes on every station. You got to throw everything inside 30 yards, for example, or it's a failure if the winning score is not a 198 to 200, 200 target main event. I don't ever want to see the sport get to that point where, it's in my opinion, the targets are just a missing out game where you get one bad station and a rabbit hops you twice, and you pretty much just well save your shells and pack up and go home. Like if you're shooting skeet and trap, and miss one target, you pretty much out of that event. You just want to go to the next one because it's going to take 100 straight to get the shoot off. I don't ever want to see sporting clays become that, personally.
Right. And that's, I know what you were getting at there a minute ago. I mean, Sean and I both love the sport. We're very passionate about it. We want to bring in as many new people as possible, and we want to do as much as we possibly can to make it better for everyone. And having you on here and having your opinions very valuable, and we appreciate your time, Rick. I know we've kept you on here for a hot minute, but we very much do appreciate your time, sir, for sure.
Absolutely, Jason. Y'all glad to be on, and glad y'all having me, and I'm welcome to be on anytime. I truly love the sport, and any way I can do anything to help it, I'm always available.
Yep, absolutely, Rick. We can tell your passion and just what you're speaking about in your voice. And again, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And please don't take anything we've ever said about you personally. We just probably were being whiny or gripey at that time.
As long as I've been in this business, I got thick skin.
I would imagine you do.
Well, I tell you what, though, Rick, is as much as we griped about the targets that were at the U.S. Open, we still had a good time. I mean, Sean will tell you, we had a blast.
I mean, it's not just the shooting, man. It's the event, the people, and everything else, and that's what you got to keep in mind when you go to these things.
Well, I'm having another major shoot in October. For next October, I'm having a regional again. But if many people tell me, if many people show up that told me, says, I can't believe I missed that shoot, Rick. I wish I could have been there to shoot those targets. If they're good for their word and they show up, we're going to have a big shoot come next October at Backwoods Quail Club. Now,
nice.
If everybody that griped about them chooses not to come, we might just have an average shoot, but we're going to see. We're going to see if that mentality works or not, because it is not a U.S. Open, so it won't be U.S. Open quality targets, but it'll be above average difficulty, which anyone I think would expect with Rick Hemmingway's name on it.
Well, you put on a very good event. It's an awesome piece of property. We love being there. We enjoyed ourselves, and we know we're going to get some good quality targets. So I would look for Sean and I to be there, at least me anyway. I know Sean's a little harder to travel, but I look forward to it, Rick.
We look forward to having you, and hope you can make it.
Thank you much, Rick. You guys have a great night.
Thank y'all. You do the same.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Dead Pair.
Well, Sean, Rick is never short of opinions, and I thought that was awesome. He had some very interesting points that we haven't heard, at least not in a long time. And I think it's interesting. I mean, this guy started off his club. He was throwing hand-set targets back in the early 90s. He's been around for a long time, not just as a target setter, but as a club owner and a competitor. So, I value his opinion.
Well, and I mean, let's face it. He's probably heard every bit of grumbling and griping that's ever been said about any shoot anywhere. Like he said, he's got thick skin, so it's not something that gets to him anymore. But the big thing about Rick, you can tell he really cares about what he does. He has a reputation. He wants to make sure he's doing the job right. Like he said, he wants to throw quality targets. And I think that's probably the best way to describe his mentality. He really wants to put something on there where people are going to say, wow, I've not seen this before, or wow, I'm just really surprised that they were able to do that at this station or whatever. So that goes a long way versus just somebody going out there and, like he said, throwing club targets that you're going to shoot at a monthly local shoot or local club. And yeah, he has a good understanding of everything. And I think he really probably had been thinking about what he was going to say during this episode for a while. So he's had a lot of time to think about, what he wanted to get across to everybody.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if we're ever going to get to that level, but we are setting the targets at the Dead Pair Blast. Hope to see everybody down there in December, December 5th to the 8th. The date's getting closer. Of course, the national championships among us, or close to it, about a month away. So a little over a month away. I know, boy, my internal brain calendar is not working right now, but, lots of shoots coming up this fall, man. I know it gets busy up in the northern states because everybody's wanting to get a good shoot in before the snow flies, and everybody down here in Florida is gearing up to start shooting because it's cooling off. So
Yeah, we're starting to see the cold temperatures in the morning and the evenings, and the leaves will be turning soon, and that always presents its own set of challenges in our part of the country. You know, those leaves start turning orange, brown, yellow, and trying to pick up clay targets out of that stuff sometimes can be a little challenging, as I'm sure you remember. So we're looking forward to some of that.
Good pair of Ranger React glasses, and you won't have to worry about it. So.
That's true. That's very true.
So, well, hey, listen, Sean, Rick alluded to it, but what do we tell everybody every week?
Well, take somebody out there and get them into this game. I mean, just show them what it's all about. It's not a hard thing to do. You just got to find the time and the day, get a gun in their hand, take them out to a course, take them out to a charity event, take them out to a corporate event. And again, once they break a few targets, they'll be hooked, and then your job's done. Easy peasy.
And then you got a travel buddy.
That's right. You got a travel buddy, a partner in crime.
Don't forget about the Dead Pair Challenge. Man, we keep getting pictures and all the stuff sent to us. Post it up on Facebook. Or if you don't mind, if you're going to send it to me on my phone, I'm going to post it up on Facebook. So,
heck yeah.
But anyway, don't forget about the Dead Pair Challenge. One new person a month. We're rounding off the end of the year. So if you got catching up to do, like Mr. Alley does, you better get on it. So, Sean, we have went long this episode, so let's get off here. I'm sure people are tired of hearing us flap our gums. Until next week, my friend.
We can't wait to see y'all back here on the Dead Pair Podcast.
We'll see you next time on the Dead Pair Podcast.
The Dead Pair.
The Dead Pair Podcast is brought to you by Elite Shotguns and Vero Beach Clay Shooting Sports and is fueled by Fiocchi USA. The Dead Pair theme song was written, arranged, and produced by Toby Tomplay. Big thanks to the following sponsors: RE Ranger, Odo Pro Technologies, Rhino Chokes, Score Chaser, Taconic Distillery, and Atlas Trap Company.